create a bit of space that will allow you to go and start exploring those new things in a small, simple now way. And that will inevitably start bringing some flexibility and agility in your business. The quicker you make yourself irrelevant, the more relevant you are. So everything that looks crazy and like impossible is exactly where you play with. If I prioritize 40, 50, 60 hours a week to one job for one corporation, I am effectively putting all my eggs in one basket. The most valuable thing you have in your life, your time, I am never going to deploy my time to one job. Either my own personal business or somebody else's. I'm just going to give you all my time for a wage. Absolutely no chance.
We're going to either get competitively disadvantaged or we're not going to have a business. So what do you say to those entrepreneurs?
I think I always encourage people to...
Gus, thank you so much for joining me on The Bottom Line.
Thank you.
We're talking about culture and you asked me how to pronounce my name and just earlier before we pressed the record button. But I was just about to ask you about your background. So you're Argentinian. Tell me a little bit about your background.
So I grew up in Patagonia,
Yep.
at the bottom tip of Latin America. Small little place. I always say in Australia comparable to something like Broken Hill or Cooper Pedy or something incredibly remote and kind of peculiar, I guess. Like when I was little, we're talking, I don't know, a little tiny town of 200 people, like really, really small. And then progressively a little bit bigger until eventually my town was, like I said, like a Broken Hill or something like that. But far away from everything, like always felt distant. So geographically gorgeous. And I often share with people that, when you grow up in a small regional town, you're not allowed to dream bigger than the town you grew up in, right?
Of course.
So if your town is X big, your dreams are X big. So of course, because I dared to go a bit further than that, inevitably, I came to the conclusion that I had to leave. But I come from very humble beginnings, so thinking that I was going to travel the world was kind of like a bit of a crazy thing. My sister tried it just before me. The only way to do it would be through a scholarship of some kind. Otherwise, we couldn't afford to do it. And also not just afford, it was unknown. Like, the world was really, really big at that point in time.
Yeah.
Like enormous and unknown. And, I left on a scholarship when I was 17. I landed in Byron Bay.
Byron Bay. I think you say Buenos Aires, but you said Byron Bay. So I was going to say,
places.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I thought you would go maybe to a big city in Argentina, then find your way to Melbourne.
No, well, I
Amazing.
didn't. I finished high school in Australia.
Amazing.
So I did primary school and most of high school in Argentina, and I was doing lots of things. I was playing tennis and being very sporty and small little town, my bike everywhere.
Yeah.
Mates, whatever. And then at 17, the shock was that in the most important year, I guess, in Argentinian school, like the last year of high school is the funnest one of them all. It's the opposite year. Yeah. Instead of being the year that you stressing, no, it's the opposite. You literally do nothing almost, and all you do is you polish and optimize your social skills. That's exactly the time when you need to figure out how to be an adult. So that's when you optimize all that. So it's the time where you become the most rebellious. The time where you understand how to form political parties, how to tackle world change. That's the time where everyone gets agitated. And then, of course, you enter university and it's like, let's go, we're ready to go. So the filter in Argentina tends to happen in the first year of uni. So uni is free. So the first year of uni is the one that filters everyone out. So if you want to be a doctor, you can, completely.
Wow.
Just go and apply and get in. First year, you need to pass. Yeah. That's your challenge. And you can try as many times as you want. You can try 2 or 3 or 4 times.
Wow.
And if you make it, I always find that fascinating and important, right? If you want to be a doctor, you shouldn't be up to a particular mark in a test. That not at all. It should be, if you want to be one, sure, come in. I mean, sure, you're going to have to, do some bits and pieces to get there. And normally in Argentina, the funny one, because a lot of friends did it, the one that gets them always anatomy. Because they have to get into bodies and blood and whatever. And that's the one that calls everyone. It's like, I want to be a doctor until they do that subject. And it's like, okay, I don't want to be a doctor.
So take us through your journey. You landed in Byron Bay. How did you end up in your professional journey? Did you get to uni? Take us through, through that very quickly.
I'll try to go quickly. First, when I came here, I did year 12 in Australia. The year in Australia, what primarily did for me is it deconstructed my observation and belief system of the entire world, right? From being a big place to being a small place, from being perhaps in parts a dangerous place to actually being completely the same as anywhere else, from expecting that Anglo-Saxon culture was going to be really cold because, of course, Latin American culture is warm. I realized, actually, no, they got the warmth. It's just slightly different warmth, and it works in a different way. And all the constructions that you built over, in my case, 17 years, came crumbling down in the first few months, inclusive of my my own safety network of family and friends. And then bit by bit, you build it up again, you know, and you build up a new version of the world. The bit that doesn't go away is your principles and ethics and, you know, stuff that your parents and your family gifted you growing up. But everything else changes. You know, I still remember growing up hating fairly heavy rock and roll because my dad hated it. So I hated it too. And then when I was 17, I got here and I was like up in Byron Bay and Regurgitator and all these crazy bands, Friends of Rome and I can't remember any other, Spider Bait and whatever. Also the crazy bands. And I was like, no, I don't like that. And then I started going, actually, I like this. This is really good stuff, you know. And all of a sudden, my belief system started shifting and molding again. So it was an amazing experience that year. And then went back to Argentina, went to uni, did industrial design, very creative from very young. My dad's an architect. My sister is an architect. Grew up amongst rubbers and pencils and papers and drawing things and understanding the world always through visual elements. So design came really natural to me and fixing things and coming up with products and solutions. And I was always designing a new plane or a new car or a new way of, or new furniture or I will see something and go, I can make this microphone better. You know, this microphone is silly because it's got, you know, whatever, the cable is not running the right way and it actually bothers me. That needs to be attached. Anyway, in fact, I noticed that, so I was annoyed about that. I'm going like, this is so silly. He points down. Anyway, so I did industrial design, and then when I was in Australia, I fell in love with a gorgeous girl, and 2 weeks after I met her, I asked her to get married with me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was
no wasting time.
One of those things that happens in life in a very fast way. Of course, she said no to me, so I was like,
I thought she said yes.
No, she said no. But for those in the audience wondering, I did marry the girl of my dreams.
Amazing.
And I got 3 kids now. So eventually I won and I convinced her, but laughing because she thought I was trying to get a visa, and I was like, what? I wasn't even thinking about the visa. I just really like you. And she had a boyfriend, so I had to get rid of him and I had to do all this stuff. Anyway, when I went back to Argentina, I went to uni, of course we stayed in touch, and she was going to go to uni too. But we couldn't quite, this bond that we created was like, we need to shake this off and figure out if this is going to work or not. So she came over to Argentina, I dropped out. I was hitchhiking a fair bit by then. I was a bit of a loose cannon at uni. I was going, but I felt it was a waste of time. There was a lot of things, generally speaking, education never worked for me. I was one of those kids that really struggled with systems in general. I always had a real healthy disrespect for systems that try to organize or control societies. And you need them because they're important to be able to organize ourselves. But equally, they can be incredibly oppressive when you don't quite fit them properly, right? And I was one of those kids that didn't quite fit. So I had, you know, the worst behavior at school, but the best marks. So I was top student, but terrible behavior. And no malicious, I never got in a fight or anything like that, but I was the agitator, the kid that will argue with the principal, with the teachers, would promote sustainability or healthy living or change something in the school, and there was always arguments and fights, and I would protest and not turn up, and there's a story of me, apparently my mom tells me, I don't remember exactly, but I was in kindergarten, my mom gets a phone call and it's like, you need to come and have a chat with your son, and I think you need to explain to him that he's not allowed to do these things. Anyway, when she got there, she was telling me that act like the teacher. And I was like, but I wasn't acting like the teacher. And she's like, but what did you do? And I said, well, I turned up to the class and the teacher wasn't there. So I told the kids, why don't you come with me and we'll go and play outside? So I convinced them. And not only I didn't go to the courtyard of the actual kindergarten.
You went to the park.
I took them outside of the kindergarten and walked 2 blocks down the street, and I went to a park that I liked better than the other one. And then, of course, they couldn't find the kids. They couldn't find us. Eventually, whatever. Anyway, so a story is a story that is whatever. It was me being.
But it probably shaped your life. So then you went through uni. Take us 10 years ahead. You're in corporate. You're at Lonely Planet.
Well,
take us about.
Yeah, so when I left uni, I went a bit crazy. I went hitchhiking around the place, trying to discover what was next. Set up a few businesses, very entrepreneurial from quite young. So I set up a number of them. One of them, my mum helped me, and it did really well. Maybe given that your audience, it's kind of in business as well, probably they'll resonate with this. But in my little town, because my dad was an architect, every time he went to build a new house, the site had to always be cleaned up because people, instead of going to the tip, they'll go and dump rubbish in empty blocks of land, right? So I figured out that was a problem. So I thought, if I go and find out who the owners of these empty blocks of land are, and I offer them a fence, they'll take me up because the fence will protect their land. And of course, when I started offering this, they will ask me, what's the catch? And I say, I own the advertising space at the front.
Oh, wow.
So they said, sure.
Oh, so it's for free. So you go, I'll put the fence.
I'll put the fence up for free.
That's a catch.
but I'll keep the advertising space. So within a few months, I became the biggest advertising agency in my town because I had
love that.
so many. Like I think at one point in time I had over 1,400 signs. You know the typical poster,
Yeah.
rock and roll band poster.
Yeah.
Okay, double, one on top, one at the bottom, across the entire front, 12, 16, 24 meter fronts, and I will cover it up. So I started doing bands and politicians, and I started running all my campaigns through it, and I had a little team of 5 people, and we plaster up at 2 a.m. in the morning, once a week, once a fortnight, depending on how long the campaign ran for. Had fights with people covering up my posters, and I had to go back. It's crazy.
Was this in Argentina? Yeah.
Yeah, in my little town. So I did that, and then with that money, I managed to save up enough to come back to Australia, very humble always, and chasing my wife, and then I was coaching tennis, picking macadamia nuts, teaching Spanish. I did everything until a job on the newspaper appears for Lonely Planet.
Wow.
And I faked my CV, and it's a big story behind anyway, and didn't fake it, exaggerated, typical young person.
Yeah. And you got the job.
the gig.
And I mean, you talk so much about innovation, change, how businesses, corporates and small businesses should think. Take us through what you learnt in those sort of first 5 to 10 years of your corporate life that shaped the conversations you're having with business owners now. And what made you learn that? What were the little things and the things maybe you did wrong at the time that goes, hold on, we need to do that better? Or was it always sort of unpack that for us?
Okay, I'll try and unpack it, or the highlights of it, the highlights reel, because it's it's been over 20 years now of observing this change, right, and seeing it. And of course, I'm also a small business owner myself, so and I got a number of them, from little startups to more traditional businesses like consulting and media and so on. But I get to spend a lot of time in that small, embryonic stage, all the way to the really big corporate ASX listed. The first piece of my career was driven very much by common sense because I didn't quite finish uni. I dropped out, and I didn't do a master's degree until I was in my late 20s. The first chunk, probably 4, 5, 6 years of Lonely Planet, it was very much all driven through common sense. My entire style was I will let my curiosity lead me, and I will apply common sense to everything. It was like, okay, first principles. How do we need to solve this? Weirdly enough, I always laugh at this, but when I started my master's degree, I would be reading. I read so much, and you read all these incredible writers and authors and researchers and thought leaders, only to realize that I didn't come up with it. They actually came up with it in the 60s or 50s or whatever. I said to my wife, "Pretty, I thought I came up with this shit. It's somebody else." And it's actually way smarter people than me.
Don't you love that? That is so cool. You're like, I think I've solved this. How to solve this problem? And then you find someone else.
Someone who's done it before and he's been studying for 20 years. And he's like, oh, it turns out it's a thing.
It's a thing. Maybe if you went to uni, they would have taught you that.
They would have taught me that. But I mean, I guess the good side of that is that it is a confirmation that you were on the right path, right? And that you clearly had, a discovery that was on the right way. Anyway, so a lot of common sense. I think, to be honest, I joined Lonely Planet at a time where books were starting to transition between, or the company was transitioning from analog to digital. Very much the internet was taking off. Nobody knew exactly what the internet meant for the world at that point in time. We kind of knew vaguely, but typical these days what I teach companies is I say, I'm an alternative futurist. I don't come here to tell you what the future holds. I come here to tell you what to do now to get ready for any future. Because the point is, it doesn't matter. You're not going to be able to predict it. So forget about trying to predict it, or do this. Don't disproportionately spend your time trying to predict the future. Spend most of that time doing something about your agility and adaptability, and spend a little bit of time predicting. So the 80-20 or the other way around. Instead of 80% predicting and 20% doing something about it, 80% doing something about it, 20% trying to predict it. Keep an eye on it, but don't go nuts. So I always say it's better for you to do something. Therefore, start acting on it, playing with it regularly, as speculative as it might be, in tiny small doses. So small, simple now, as I always say, not complex, big later. Small, simple now, so that you can actually start discerning and sharpening what it means, rather than sitting there speculating and talking about it all the time. Because talk is cheap, right? You can do that forever. And also, it doesn't matter how well you can predict it. Let's say you nail it. If you can't adapt your business or yourself to it,
then what's the point?
No, right? So there's a lot of that were epiphanies at the start. So I come into Lonely Planet, that happens, and I learned straight away a number of big truths. One is the sum of the parts is the business. So the business doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So if you've got a small business, let me give you right now, if you've got 10 people in your business and 8 out of the 10 people are naturally grumpy people, you got a grumpy business.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what you try to do,
Yeah.
how many emails you send to people, how much you try to convince them, hey guys, be super nice, we will come, it's really important, whatever.
Done.
If 8 out of the 10 are conservative, your business is a conservative business. And if you go and ask them to like be bold and take risk, they won't, because that's your average. So your average, is your business. That's effectively the business. So I've learned that that's important because, of course, if you got a business full of editors and book people,
Your business is...
business is a book business. Like it's really difficult to be anything else. And then a number of things around systems owning us versus us owning the system. I talk about concrete a lot, and I say that once we concrete this system, processes, frameworks, training materials, procedures, principles, sacred cows, once we concrete them, the business owns you. You don't own the business
So when you
anymore.
say concrete it, are you referring that if you create a system and you concrete it, you see it as something that's so secure and thing that you don't want to get the sledgehammer out and thing
Well,
it.
yeah.
You want it to be more fluid so that you can go, hold on, we can change that. It's not so cemented. That process isn't cemented. That thinking of how we should run our business isn't cemented. Everything's up for change.
Correct.
So you're thinking, okay, because I did listen to
There's a tension
you talk
between
about
that, right? Yeah.
Okay, so I really understand that. So your view is even if you think the system or the process is right for now, it could be what it is today, but be open-minded to saying, no, we're going to challenge that status quo. It's not always going to be concreted into the way we think.
And we concrete without realizing. And also we concrete for good reasons too.
Yeah.
Meaning concrete is efficient. It's effective. It does the
predictable.
job. It's predictable.
Yeah.
It's legal.
Yeah.
Like, all right, we need to do this because by law we have to abide by all this. Okay, cool, put it in place. The challenge is that law changes and then we struggle to change and panic because we concrete the shit out of it and we build it into all our processes and systems and thinking and training and whatever. And then all of a sudden the law changes and we go, what? We now need to change all this. It's like, whoa, yeah. And like that, anything, you name it, the customer changes and you have to go, what do you mean now? Or now it's TikTok or this or that. It's like, what? I got used to doing advertising this way. Now I need to change. So, and we concrete, like I said, with good intentions, but without realizing it eventually owns us.
Yeah,
and
I like
instead
that.
of us,
it owns you. So.
yeah, and this is a challenge for small business in particular, that business owners end up being owned by the business. They're not owners of the business. The business owns them, right? And you end up just running around doing what the business tells you to do, rather than hey, what are you doing this for?
I don't know.
I've been doing it
for the last 20 years.
Yeah, we do it this way.
So you were in that transition phase where it was books and print and the internet came along. And was that sort of the first year you were in there, or that sort of as you grew into the business that started to happen? The question is, how did you then go, okay, hold on, this place has got a lot of concrete.
Yeah.
And how did you get involved in your role in that digital transformation?
The truth is, the concrete is an analogy that came obviously to me afterwards, right?
Yeah.
In hindsight, everything is a lot easier. When you're in it, you're not stuck in traffic. You are the traffic, right? Like you are it. So it's not as if while I was inside, I was completely, aware of everything that was going on. The internet creeped up a lot slower than AI.
Yeah.
So both very similar in terms of, they're transversal, they're horizontal technologies that cut across everything.
Yeah.
Typical of the experience we've been having over the last couple of centuries is that each one comes a little bit quicker and happens faster. So the internet crept up for a few decades, and then when it sped up, it didn't quite go crazy, like build up, more websites. There was a bubble popped in the early 2000s, and then it kept building and letters. AI has been in the builder for a few decades, the same.
But it's gone.
But and the tools of production have become available to everyone really fast.
Yeah.
Where back in the day, I remember making a website was not that easy.
Nah.
There was still a bit of complexity around it. Now it's like people can go into Lovable or Rippling and build.
Yeah.
It's insane. It's really,
insane.
really fast. So I think the recognition of we need to start shifting is when we started seeing companies like TripAdvisor and Expedia coming up, and all of a sudden our customer base going, or Google even though they weren't a direct competitor, and customers going, hey, I can just go to a box, put Italy, and get what I want. And we'll be like, yeah, but we've got this thing called a book and it's got an index. Same thing. It's like, well, hang on a minute.
And you need a cover to store it.
Yeah, correct. So there was a little bit of that recognition. And by the way, typical of big, large corporations, I always say to people, don't ever for a second think that there was enough smart people at Blockbuster, Kodak, Nokia, Lonely Planet, that they didn't see the change. Of course they saw the change. Of course Kodak wasn't stupid. They just couldn't do anything about it because they built too much momentum in a single direction and had too much concrete. And the sum of the parts was the result. So what happens is, even if you recognize it and realize, you can't do anything. If you have 10 people in your accounting firm and they're all accountants, and shit's changing and they're becoming more AI agents and so on and so forth, and you go, we should change. I know we should. Yeah, good idea. And then you keep talking about it, but you're not doing anything about it.
I got to share a story on that, because you mentioned the scenario where you said, if you've got 8 grumpy employees out of 10, you've got a grumpy business. One of the things we're trying to do at Alexander Spencer, we try really hard to provide awesome customer service, but we try to get accountants who are very technical. Like, think of lawyers, accountants.
Yeah.
They just know how to design a house, or they know how to do a tax return and whatnot. They're just good at that. They love it. We ask these guys to sell. We ask these guys to do customer experience, be account managers. And I'm driving so much like training and guidance. I'm like, why can't these guys just pick up a phone and just have a conversation with a client? It builds connection. All they want to do is do tax returns. And you just nailed the example you gave is no wonder they're not selling. Then you've got the wrong people doing the wrong thing, and you've got a bunch of technical people. It is something we have identified. But it's interesting the way you said that with Kodak. And they knew, but they couldn't.
They couldn't.
So set.
And this is what happens to us in our own life, by the way.
Yeah.
So I say to people, don't forget that not only businesses build momentum, industries build momentum in a single direction, but each one of us as individuals build momentum.
Yeah.
We teach our kids to do that. And then you find yourself recognizing a change that you should make in your life, and you can't, because you just keep waking up in the morning and doing the same shit you've always done, because you're so used to, and it's comfortable and it's concreted. Wow. So it's easy. So you just do that. And then that discomfort of shifting or changing or bringing something into your life is like, oh, yeah, but I just do what I've done.
That's so true. Same coffee shop,
Yeah.
same order.
And your biology actually plays against you, because your biology wants you to do that.
Wants you to
do the same shit over and over again. Because your brain consumes too much energy.
Of course.
And because your brain developed over 2.5 million years of hunter-gathering, which energy wasn't easy to come by, your brain developed this beautiful technique, which is if you burn the same neuropath, brain's happy.
So how do we as leaders that are psychologically wired like this, probably have these issues at home, and then want to bring it into our business that we, especially now, I wrote AI on my piece of paper because that's the one that's coming, and everyone's talking about how we're going to innovate, how we're going to keep up, and what do we need to do differently. If change is so bloody hard and we're getting the same coffee from the coffee shop as an entrepreneur and then trying to build it in, how should we think through this with this fast-paced change that's coming?
I always say to people, don't waste another day or another second delaying your investment in your tolerance to discomfort and change.
Yeah.
Like, increase it as fast as you can. Your biology wants you to get comfortable, because your biology says, because again, remember, the brain developed in a context and a time that is not the one today. And biological evolution is really, 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 really slow. But technological evolution is really fast. So we're at odds with the environment in which we exist, completely at odds, right? And we try everything we can to try to keep up, but we're barely in control, right? I always say to people, the more you read neuroscience, the more you realize that you're pretty much acting on instinct 98% of the time. Every now and then you might become conscious and go, wait a second, I think I'm going to do this. The rest of the time, you think you're in charge. You're not in charge. Your biology is making decisions for you, and you're just following the pattern that your biology tells you to. But the truth is that what you need to do the most is counterintuitively bring discomfort in your life. I always say to people, do it through novelty, because it's wonderful and it's fun and it's exciting and scary and uncomfortable. But at least you get to play a little bit with your plasticity.
Yeah.
So that's why every year I always say to people that I do a new thing that I've never done before, right? So this year, for example, I'm doing glass blowing.
Oh, okay,
I've never done glass blowing, but I thought this year I'd pick that up. Last year I did professional pinball player, I became. I bought a boat and became a captain. I've done underwater photography, astrophotography, astrophysics, drumming, you name it, knife making, sword making, whatever. I've done lots of things. And every year I pick something that I've never done before, right? And that is to put myself through the paces. Last year I did the AICD course, again, 10 years later, to hang out with a bunch of accountants and lawyers, which are almost my OP, like my kids say, my opponent. because I'm the disorder guy and these
Yeah.
guys are the order
Order
guys.
guys,
And I'm
yeah.
like, right, you guys, I need to learn how you operate. I need to be in the discomfort of law. Like they gave me
governance.
2 binding
my
folders
gosh.
like this thick each. Can
I've
you
looked
get
at that course. I keep doing Googling it once a year. Should I do the AICD course? And I'm like, nah, it's too. I'm an accountant. I'm like, that's too boring for me.
I did it and it's hard to do
It's
because
hard.
it is, like I said, just the welcome is like 2 binded folders. Like these folders must come from the 1970s. I don't even know how
Yeah.
you still buy them or where you buy them. But I got 2 folders with like, clunk, clunk.
Yeah,
And I'm sitting there going, what the hell?
but you've made discomfort getting through that.
But I love it because it is my way to also, eating my own dog food. Like I can't just preach to people, be uncomfortable.
And
And,
also,
or for example, do glass blowing, which is fun for me because I'm going, great, that kind of super
but
appeals
when
to
you
me.
don't, when you do something new for the first time, it's because you're not good at it. It's uncomfortable because people like doing things they're good at. That builds confidence, blah, blah, blah. But when you do something that you're not good at and then you get uncomfortable, you generally want to give up. But then after a while, once you get good at it, it just skyrockets your confidence. I feel like each time you do something, it could be glass blowing. I never thought of it as be uncomfortable doing something sociable or be uncomfortable doing something that's fun because it's a little bit uncomfortable. When you learn it, you get confident. And it's like a layering effect that kind of, then you can go, is the idea then for business owners to then do this stuff personally?
Yeah.
Keep going.
Your business benefits.
Yeah.
This is the thing. It doesn't even have to be about technology
Yeah.
or business or whatever. It can be anything, but the plasticity and the tolerance to change will apply to your business, especially if you've got a small business. Imagine you've got 10 people, right? You want to make your 10 accountants slightly more bubbly and maybe a little more whatever. Send them for 12 months on a challenge every month. And I tell you what, by the end of the year, you'll have different people.
Correct.
Because they would have, and it don't even have to be about like, don't send them to professional training on
Sales and
none of that stuff. Send them to like, glass blowing and live nude drawing or some shit. Some crazy stuff that they go, what has this got to do with accounting? Nothing. And that's the point. Like just make your brain explode a bit in discomfort and your entire business will benefit. Right? And then of course, diversity and mix the right people. I get it. But
so let's talk about this fast pace. So, I mean, I said this to someone the other day. I'm like, sometimes I drive to work about a week ago. I'm like, and I listen to a lot of podcasts and a few of them is, a bit scary around, the future's going to be very different and our kids aren't going to have jobs. I'm like, oh my God, it's very scary. But I wasn't worried about my kids. I was driving to work and I'm like, shit, do I even have an accounting firm in 5 years' time? Because a lot of what we do is sitting in front of a computer. It's using our brains to do things. There's obviously great technology in our industry that's probably going to get, innovated and get better. Like, shit, I've got into a new office for 10 years. Do I need... I get really worried. And then I come in here and I'm like, what do I do about it? So let's talk about that. All those business owners out there now that have got concrete everywhere, that maybe, and I think you said it in another podcast, their wardrobe has still got clothes from 10 years ago. I think you said that. And they got concrete everywhere.
holding on to shit, yeah.
So advice to them that go, if we don't make some element of innovation, change and flow with the world, we're going to either get competitively disadvantaged or we're not going to have a business. So what do you say to those entrepreneurs?
I think I always encourage people to think of the future as something they need to pull towards them, not something they need to wait there for it to hit them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you need to make sure you become incredibly good at letting go so that you can make your BAU the right size. So it pays the bills, but it allows enough space to explore the future.
Love that.
Because if your BAU is so full of everything, because everything you do, you never stop doing, because you can't let go of anything, right? That's why the analogy of the wardrobe, right? Your wardrobe is full of shit that you don't need and you don't let go. Your emotional baggage that you carry, mental notes of, because you did this to me back in... Just let go. Or things that we do in business. Why are we doing this? We've always done it. Yeah, but who gives a shit? I don't know. Let's just stick with it just in case. Let go, create a bit of space. That will allow you to go and start exploring those new things in a small, simple now way. And that will inevitably start bringing some flexibility and agility in your business, right? The quicker you make yourself irrelevant, the more relevant you are.
Okay.
Always. So everything that looks crazy and impossible is exactly where you play with. So if right now someone says, hey, an AI agent of the future could potentially do all your accounting, pay attention, Start figuring out small, simple now. How do I train an agent to do my job? But do it yourself. Don't go, because it's that simple. And if you don't know how to do it, ask ChatGPT. How do I train my own agent to replace doing my job?
Yeah.
And then start following and seeing what happens. And bit by bit, that exercise and that playing with the future means that you're not sitting there going, I wonder what AI is going to do. You're actually doing it and playing with it and talking to your mates and talking to other colleagues and figuring out what they're doing. And that allows you to start introducing in your business that novelty. That could be to do with AI and could be a dose of a few other things as well that you might have not connected to. Quick, simple lesson from internet days for small businesses. The first thing that always goes is the practical, rational stuff. And the bit that takes the longest to go is the opinion, emotional stuff. So if you think of a Lonely Planet book, when the internet is born, the first thing that goes is all the practical things, timetables of a ferry in an island in Greece. The internet has it, I know exactly, can be updated regularly, boom, that goes. What doesn't go is the opinion of the author to say, catch this ferry early in the morning, not that one in the afternoon, because the crowds are smaller and so on, so on, so. So the opinion is what goes last. Eventually the opinion also went because the internet eventually became an aggregation of opinions and eventually you could discern, hey, it looks like most people are catching this one over this one. There must be a reason. Hang on, let me check the comments. Done. So you didn't need the authority opinion anymore. Eventually. Yeah? So with AI, the same thing will happen. The first thing that will go out of your job as an accountant or a lawyer or whatever will be all the practical bits. It's like all the legal bits. I don't need to ask anymore, my account, hey, can I do this or not? I can literally reach my phone and say, hey, in Australia, can I do this or not? And it'll answer to me. Like, it'll answer a perfect, because it has all of the law, everything in its head, and probably soon enough, it'll have all my accounts. So it'll tell me, Gus, based on your accounting and blah, 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 here's what you can or can't do. Done. But the bit that won't go potentially will be my relationship with my accountant. The opinion of, look, given the age of your kids and blah, 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 maybe try this or careful with that. Don't. That stuff, eventually that will go too, by the way.
I agree with that.
So I will go, but that will be the last thing. So if I had to advise people right now is definitely double down on investing on replacing yourself practically and improve as much as you can your experiential human side. Hold on to that for as long as you can until eventually those two things will mix and it will keep changing in some capacity.
And it'll be new worlds. Your involvement in that Lonely Planet changeover was, because I don't actually know the story. I love talking to people that I interview and not over researching. So what ended up happening with Lonely Planet? It was very successful in the transition. Take us through that journey, and then and now I want to know about what's happening now. Okay.
So no, Lonely Planet days. Well, they were amazing, and I was very lucky. I was the lucky kid that was a fanatic of traveler. You know, like think about it. I was hitchhiking in Latin America, looking at Lonely Planets of all the other travelers, going, oh my God, imagine one day working for that company. You know, I was like, and then I was like that kid that, dreamt to be a musician and then was in a rock and roll band, traveling. To me, it was the same thing because I was a fanatic traveler and all of a sudden I was working for Lonely Planet. It was like, my God, this is like the craziest outcome of a dream ever, So I was lucky. I got to work at Lonely Planet, surrounded by people smarter than me, incredible people, so very lucky. Amazing company with the best vibes. You can imagine, like a bunch of travelers together, rocking the world. So it was incredible. And I got to observe it and watch it as it was transitioning from digital to analog. So I got to work with Google and Apple and Amazon and Google X and Sergey Brin and you name it, like incredible people and developing like the embryonic stages of Google Maps, of the App Store, of ebooks, of all these things that now are all over in the world. And I saw the first drafts of it. I still remember seeing a draft of Spotify before it was Spotify.
Did you really?
Yeah, because I was working with Nokia, and Nokia was very involved. Anyway, and Lonely Planet, look, depends on how you judge success. Did Lonely Planet manage to catch the success financially of, let's say, an Expedia or a TripAdvisor or Booking.com, one of those companies? No, we didn't surf that wave of digital opportunity in the travel sector. We didn't disappear, though. Lonely Planet at that point in time, a lot of the competitors went bankrupt and Lonely Planet didn't. So it managed to adjust enough to stay on, and it's still alive today. I mean, it's not as big as it used to be. I compare it, or I think of it as a vinyl record company. It's probably smaller,
but they love it.
But loved by lots of people and amazing, But didn't quite.
And take us through New 21 and what you're doing now. You're just before you came here, you did a keynote for a large ASX listed company. I won't name who it was, and you're on socials, you're in front of fans. You're like a rock star now, Gus. So take us through what you're doing now, the area you're playing, and yeah.
Actually, I'll tell you the story that you probably weren't ready for or thinking about, and why it led to where I am now and what I do now. When I finished at Lonely Planet, I was very tired of corporate life, and I kind of climbed a really steep ladder of corporate in a very publicly big brand, global. I had a lot of weight and responsibility on my shoulders there, and I was 34 or something when I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I kind of knew what I didn't want to do. Like I said, I don't want that political environment that, I mean, I've learned to master, and I did really well in it, but it was complex, and I wanted to work on things that I wanted to work on, and I wanted to work with people that I wanted to work on only, and how do I achieve that? And I wanted to only work 9 months of the year, 8. Okay. And what if I don't want to work? What if I want to take off 3 or 4 months of the year? And by the way, I've done that for the last 10 years. I take 3 or 4 months of a year. Well, how do I do it? So then I started realizing that the epiphany I had was that, deploying the most valuable thing you have in your life, which is your time, effectively, which is an illusion. It's just the deployment of it, the prioritization of it. If I prioritize 40, 50, 60 hours a week to one job for one corporation, I am effectively putting all my eggs in one basket. And because I was an early investor, I've been an angel for many years now, and then helped set up corporate venture funds and run as a general partner of the funds, I realized it's like investing in one share. The most valuable thing you have in your life, your time, all in one share. Your chances of success are almost zero. And if anything happens, you're gone, right? So I went, I am never going to deploy my time to one job, either my own personal business or somebody else's, less somebody else's. Like, I'm just going to give you all my time for a wage. Absolutely no chance. Yeah. So then I started thinking of how do I build my life and my career as if it was a portfolio. Same as a portfolio of investments. How do I spread this time across the broadest, safest possible way so that the odds are that one of them will pay off? So at that point in time, by accident, I fell into keynote speaking because someone asked me to come and present in the company, and I did. And there was an agent and said, a friend of mine saw me and said, my mate said, dude, you should do it too. And then one thing led to the other. I'll do it. And then it became a massive thing. So over the last 10 years, I do anyway, I won't say, but
no, I've seen the stadiums; they're full.
I've done up to 10,000 people, so that's the biggest one in the US. And this morning I think it was 500 or 600 people in the audience, so a big one. But every week I do about 2 or 3 keynotes a week on average.
Yeah. So keynote speaking was.
So then that was one, and then all of a sudden, because I was an angel and I started investing heavily, I started getting involved with some of the startups. So I'll go, all right, I'll do a day a week for that, and then I have corporates approaching me and going, can you do this job? And I go, look, no, I don't want a corporate job. Here's how I would do it. Oh my God, Gus, we want you to do that. And I go, hey, I got you a deal. I'll do it 1 day a week. And they go, you can't do this job in 1 day a week. Try me. I reckon I can do a big chunk of it, because if I'm not involved with you all the time, I won't pay the tax of being in the office. And then all of a sudden people started hiring me a day a week to run their innovation or their corporate, whatever. So I started building that. Then that led into, of course, having a consulting business, because being in front of so many people, so many executive teams, and Gus, can you come and help us more? And I'd be like, no, I don't do that. I don't know. But then one of the clients would be like, but that's a cool one. I love to fix that problem. So then I'll go and find a couple of my mates and I'll bring them in. Then we started aggregating that, and that became New 21, which is a beautiful little business. But we kind of kept it small, because if it gets too big, then I pay the same price again. And we didn't want that. And we don't want to be your average, sometimes we call ourselves the unconsultancy, because we try to avoid any of the kind of big four vibes. Not that there's anything wrong with them, I love them, but we try to play more of a very personalized. So we work with the very largest companies in the world, but in a way that is so niche and so stealth that often the people inside the business don't even know that we actually don't work for them. And we love it. We love that. We actually ask them to appoint us with titles. One of my big, large ASX listed, for many years I was the innovator in residence. I wasn't. I was a consultant technically, but they didn't know that, right? I was like, for intents and purposes.
I love it. You're like Batman. Do you have all these little what do you call, different aliases? You've like the passport.
Yeah. To come in.
Which one am I now? Like the CIA, the undercover agent.
So that's New 21, and then we've run corporate venture funds and set up companies. Set up for companies, ASX listed companies. So I've got 2 founders. beautiful people. I help them with their wheelchair company. It's called Rove Wheelchairs. Beautiful.
Yeah, I think I've heard of it.
Yeah, gorgeous. Gorgeous. They're local manufacturer.
Yeah.
Hard to do manufacturing in Australia.
Yeah.
These guys are doing it.
Amazing.
Beautiful, beautiful business.
So you talked about corporates. What's one or two things that our Australian SMEs can learn from your Qantases and Telstras and these large corporates that you go in there and you go, geez, if the little SMEs knew this little trick, they'd be much better for it.
Okay. I'll start with the counterintuitive one. Definitely what not to do.
Let's start with
definitely
that one. Don't do that. Learn from what they don't do. Well,
definitely learn. Don't do that. So, for example, in the pursuit of scale and to operate at that scale, they have to lay even more concrete down. And here's the mistake that they make when they lay it down. Often, because it's such a pain in the butt and it's such a big business and there's so many people and it's so many regions and it's a global company or whatever, they not only they conquer it, they just conquer it and forget. They go, you know what? Oh shit, that was so hard. Just never remember again. And the challenge is that before you finish implementing, more often than not, you have to get rid of it and implement something else. These days is so fast that even software, think about this. You finally figure out to do it, you put it in place, you start using it, 12 months later, there's a better one. So I often remind people, the thing that the corporates don't do very well, that a small startup should never try to do in the pursuit of scale, is concrete so much that they're not thinking of getting rid of the concrete. So every time you implement something in your business, think of the explementation path.
Wow.
Implementation, explementation, which is, how do I get rid of this? Doesn't matter what it is. Always think about, hey, we're going to implement a new process. Blah, blah, blah. Great, amazing. Let's get excited about how to do it. How fast can we do it? Who do we need to train? How do we cascade? How do we get 10 people involved? Da, da, da. Great. At that point in time, pause and go, okay. And if we had to get rid of it, how fast could we get rid of it? And then do another hour of that. Okay, well, we would unpick this, change that. Actually, hang on. We would have connected it to the bank and to this. So we would have to disconnect that and that and that. Where would the database go? They own the database. Okay, let's make sure that before we sign the contract, we own the database. Great. Good. So you know how to unplug yourself. Because if you don't know how to unplug yourself, then eventually what happens, we're lazy. We go, let's get rid of the concrete. Yeah. And then you look and you go, mate, this is going to happen. Have you thought about it? No, me neither. Just leave it. Don't worry about it. And then we just become lazy and then we don't do it. So large corporations lay it down really well. They struggle to get rid of it. So don't do that. Now, things that they do well. Large corporations do spend a chunk of time and effort and investment very well, more often than not, in learning and development and training its people. So they do that. They know that's a trick. They know that's important. They know they have to do it because otherwise it's very difficult to arrange thousands of humans in a single direction and with similar ethos and similar. So you have to do that, and it's important. And it might... Small business often see this, especially as very cynical and very kumbaya, like, an accountant. We're going to do some self-exploration and emotional intelligence. They go, come on, mate, seriously, leave me alone. Oh, we're going to do Myers-Briggs and we're going to see your type. And they go, whatever. But
they do that well.
They do that well, and it's important. You should do it. And a lot of the HR teams in those big, large corporations are, and this is a bit of a kudos to them because I work with them very closely. They are geniuses. They're amazing teams because they sit in the in-betweens, right? In that magic, relationship between humans. And in smaller scales, you can almost hold that in your brain. 10 people, 20 people, you can almost know. But when you get to 1,000 people or 200 or 10,000, contracts become really complex. So you have to think very cleverly about that stuff. And then they, of course, structuring efficient scale, which has to do with the concrete as well. So this is again the paradox and the dilemma is that you have to be also very good at that while you remain good at getting rid of it.
Yeah, because we're about to launch a project internally, and as you talk about concrete, we have grown quite significantly in the last 3-4 years, and we've put on a lot of new staff, a lot of new clients, and we've bought 2 accounting practices and bolted that on as well. And one of the things we found out was we have awesome procedures and processes, but none of it's written down. So we actually don't have a lot of SOPs that's centralized. So one of the projects that I want to launch is, can we have a centralized standard operating procedures? We know most of the things, but when we do it, I want to know and challenge the status quo that when we write those SOPs for how we open the doors, how we greet people at reception, all the way through to doing the tax return and booking a job, calling the client. I want to challenge status quo. Is there a better way of doing it as we're documenting this?
Yes.
But I love the idea of
can you change it?
Can you change it? How quickly? And it can.
Because this is the issue. Don't forget, humans are, there's a beautiful story. I won't remember now, but if you do your research, you probably find out. Humans, since effectively language was invented by us, observe the value of anything written down to such high regard that I think there's a story of Second World War, and there was Jewish people trying to escape, and it was literally a closed down border. But I think they had papers that were signed by X or whatever it was, and the paper was so valuable, even though the dissonance in the guard's head going, but I'm not allowed to let you through. But your paper says you can, but no, you shouldn't go through these,
Yeah.
But the paper says, okay, I'll have to let you through.
Yeah, which is
because the paper, is written down. It's like, but my degree is written down. It's on the wall. So I am that.
Right.
So humans have that. So what I warn you about is be very careful that in the process of you making things efficient and standardizing them, you don't start becoming irrelevant. Because you actually now have stopped all your people in your business thinking how to keep improving it every day and changing every day. Because they go, I'll just follow what it says there. But it's like, no, but that's a better way. No, but I don't need to use my common sense because now I just follow what the SOP says.
Yeah, because it's really interesting because we don't have them and we've never had them. We have little bits and pieces and everyone create their own. And I'm like, but we do a really good job. Like our systems, processes, it's just not easy to onboard a staff member. It's like, okay, we're going to onboard someone new. And it's like, oh, how do we do that? It's like, oh, ask her, she'll tell you.
If I was consulting your business, you know what I would tell you? Don't. Write me in a bit of paper, 1 A4 bit of paper, 10 principles.
Basics.
That you give them. Effectively, what's going to trigger your common sense to act.
Yeah.
So don't tell them how to greet a person. Just tell them what the person is meant to feel. What does a person need to feel when they meet you for the first time? Yeah. This is what you want them to feel. Okay, you are an adult. Make sure they feel that. Do it however you want to do it. Because if you standardize it, I'll tell you a wonderful, relevant story to that. And I was a cartographer, right? When I started, we were designer cartographers, we were called, right?
Yeah.
And a job description really clearly explained how to draw the best maps, right? The best maps were drawn like this. Here's your KPIs. Here is the way you operate. Here's who you work with. Here's who you report to. Here's what you're responsible and accountable for. And there were standards of what maps need to look like. There was color and black and white, and this, right? So we follow that. And in fact, to be really good and get your end of the year goal sets and bonuses and whatever, you had to achieve this to do that really well. Simultaneously, somewhere around the world, there were people trying to fix the real problem, which wasn't to draw really pretty maps. It was actually to get a traveler from A to B when they didn't know how to get from A to B. That's what they were doing. That's what we were doing. So guess what? They came up with Google Maps and we didn't.
Yeah.
And the reason why we didn't come up with Google Maps is because we weren't even thinking about how to get the customer from A to B. What we were thinking about was, how do I draw the best map in print in this form this way? We weren't even incentivized. We were restricted even without.
You were restricted because it said you must follow.
You say to someone, this is exactly how you greet a person. They'll do that incredibly well. Humans are trained for 18 years at school to do exactly the shit you tell them to do. That's what they do. So they come into your business and they go, oh, I love this business. You give me an induction program. You tell me exactly what to do. I park my common sense outside the door and I fucking forget about everything. I just do that. And the challenge is that next time you come into the business 10 months later and someone says the feedback is that the experience of greeting people is not very good, and you go, we need to innovate that. Good luck innovating it, because all those people that you've trained to follow the SOP have lost all their ability to think creatively or use common sense.
Fuck it. No more SOPs.
So give them tell them in the principles, give them 10,
what you're trying to make them feel, what the purpose of that particular task is.
Why do we do tax
Why
that way?
do we do it?
So get
What's
to the
important?
bottom of it and what's important, and then try to write it down in such a way that says, we live by these. And in fact, there's not many, and therefore they will probably can recite 5, 6, 7 of them, which is enough to kind of run your business.
Yeah.
Be a good person always. Make them feel transparent. Make sure they know everything.
Yeah.
Always, and there'll be things that when you break down, make them feel these, they'll deduce themselves.
Yeah.
What I mean? It won't be that hard. So if I was helping you, I'd be saying, careful, because if you're growing and it's beautiful and it's doing well, and these people instinctively and naturally are doing well anyway, I'll be like, well, careful, don't go concreting shit that you shouldn't be concreting.
I'm scared now. Fucking no more concreting. I haven't even gone to my first question. By the way, guys. I got 2 pages of questions. We probably run out of time, and I'm going to have to get you back. Hopefully, we didn't touch on innovation in a deep, deep way, but you've given so many little foundations of how we should think, how we should change in terms of our own lives to bring in that kind of innovation thinking. The 80-20 rule, I really, really resonated to that. 80% trying to fix the future and 20% doing. I liking that flip. Look, unfortunately, we have run out of time, Gus. We'll start at question 3 next time, and we'll go all the way down. But I just want to say thank you so much for joining me on The Bottom Line. You are an inspiration. You talk with so much passion. And yeah, we talked before we pressed record. We talked a bit about our background. And I know the Argentinian background and my background being Armenian. We are, hot-blooded, love family, love interacting, love the socials, and that energy really comes through. And I know why so many people want to be a keynote speaker. And that gentleman said, hey, mate, you're going to be a keynote speaker, was onto something. Gus, thank you so much again for joining me on The Bottom Line.
Thank you, mate.
Thank you.